Now, given that Orwell argues for a bit that we have this ability to break into this negative sort of feedback loop that's corrupting our language and our thinking and going on, he says, we have to fight against bad English, right? This is a struggle that we should get involved in. And in order to help us out, you can have a look. He gives 5 examples of bad writing. But think about some ones that are with us today. Now, these are ones that I would say are examples similar of bad writing and bad speech that Orwell might say, and I hear them a lot today. And they're basically expressing the same idea. It's when I hear people use terms like my truth, right? Or that's just your opinion. If you use those kinds of terms all the time, think about what that will do, how that can shape how you think. If you always think of truth as in terms of a possession, right, you're really confusing truth and opinion. You know, that's my opinion. Truth is not something that you would own or that anyone owns. Truth is just something that's part of the world. Now, some people might say, well, there isn't anything like truth in the world. It's just all opinion. Well, that might be the case, but be aware that when you say that, that is a very strong relativist position. So this illustrates Orwell's point that if you start using certain kinds of expressions, they will shape how you see the world. So if you talk about my truth all the time, or you always think that everything you hear, and even if you agree with it, you'll say, well, that's just your opinion. You'll think everything is on the level of opinion, everything is relative. So in that case, these are examples of what Orwell would think is bad ways of thinking, because it would apply to ethics too, right? Well, it's just, that's just my truth or your opinion or whatever, even when it comes to ethical issues. So these kinds of phrases will get, basically, as Orwell says, they'll get in your head and they will change and modify. And what he would say also, as a moral point, it will distort your picture of the world. So have a look at the 5 examples of what Orwell thinks are bad writing, and he takes them a lot from academics. No surprise there. Orwell didn't like academics all that much. In any case, there is you might want to think of this as an analogy with food and language. Like, as our bodies need food, there's certain kinds of foods that you can eat and they'll keep you alive. But there's bad food, right? It's not the case that it's not food. There'll be certain kinds of foods that you can buy, certain kinds of fast food that, yeah, it's food, but it's not good food, right? It's not like incorrect, but it's not healthy. Orwell's making a similar point with language. Yeah, there's lots of language around that you can use, but there's healthier kinds of language to use than others, right? But you should be aware that all language is just like food. It's needed and it affects you. It's not neutral. None of this stuff is neutral. So that's an important point to think about when you're reading Orwell and when you go and you read other texts, right? They're not neutral. They're pushing a point. So think about, so let's pull back a bit and we think about what Orwell's doing. This is in the essay, just in terms of his style that you want to think about when you write essays. Coming up with these kinds of examples is very provocative, right? It gets your attention, right? And maybe even makes you want to, maybe gives you even a visceral type of reaction. You might laugh at how bad the examples are, or you might be a little puzzled. You might think they're not so bad or whatnot. But the point is it does get your attention. And also, it shows you, again, that Orwell's not talking about grammar. He's not talking about bad spelling. Like when we say someone, is a terrible writer, and we just mean that this person, doesn't know how to structure a sentence properly. We're really talking about grammar or typos or clunky passages. That's not what Orwell is worried about here. As a matter of fact, he's not really worried about bad grammar. He doesn't think bad grammar is a political threat. That's reading him totally incorrectly. So think about that food analogy, and he gives us some reasons why, and again, think about he doesn't just give these out. He puts them down. He gives us reasons why he picked them. And he says what's common to the 5 examples is there's a certain staleness of imagery. So Orwell thinks that this is sort of a problematic aspect of language, is the staleness of imagery. And a big one for him is the lack of precision. So because a lot of political writing, which he'll talk about soon, has a certain kind of imprecision or a lack of definitiveness or something about it that he thinks is problematic, and he's going to investigate it in a little bit more detail.